techniques that are used in strategic therapy. The first category of techniques we would refer to as either compliance-based or defiance-based directives. And that phrase comes directly from the work of Jay Haley, but also phrased in different ways by other strategic therapists. But a compliance-based directive simply is telling a family what you want them to do, giving them real clear, concise, pragmatic direction as to the kinds of things that you would like them to do in order to change.
And even that is designed to change the problem-maintaining sequence. But the characteristic is that it's a very straight directive designed to change some family interaction. In contrast to that, you have more paradoxical injunctions. And from the strategic therapist's standpoint, those are sort of prescribing the behaviors associated with the symptom or the solutions to the symptom. And quite often, at least according to the major theorists in strategic therapy, those are designed in order that families would resist the therapist's injunction and therefore find other ways to solve the problem other than the usual problem-maintaining behaviors.
There's been an enormous amount written about paradoxical task and paradoxical prescriptions. The general notion is that you prescribe the symptom. And by prescribing the symptom, you make it less likely that the symptom will occur, and therefore that the family or the individual will be forced to look for a new way to relate or a new way to do whatever it was that they were doing that was problematic in the first place.
Keeping in mind that in so doing, the therapist still must find a language framework that could be acceptable to the family so that they can still maintain some kind of joining and rapport so that the therapists remain believable and therefore influential.
We will here present a simulated family interview that will offer an example of interventions that might be made by strategic-oriented family therapists in working with a family. In this instance, Dr. Corrales and Dr. Rotrock will act as co-therapists. Appearing on the screen is a simple family genogram of the nuclear family unit. 19-year-old Jennifer is away at college and is not involved in the family interview. The participating family members include Marie, the mother, age 42, Mike, the father, age 43, and son Jimmy, age 16. Jimmy is the identified patient or symptom bearer. He has been making poor grades in school, has been viewed particularly by his father as beyond parental control, and recently was involved with a group of peers in a joyriding episode that the juvenile court recognized as auto theft. His father, Mike, is a salesman who travels and is away from home much of the week. Marie, the mother, is not employed outside the home.
I'd like to ask you first, Mike, if you would tell us a little bit about why the family's here, what the main problem is or the concern is that brings you here today.
Well, the main reason we're here is because of Jimmy and the difficulties he's been having in school and with the juvenile court here recently. And
Tell us, Mike, exactly what he's done.
exactly what he's done?
Yeah, that you see as a problem.
How far back do you want me to go?
Just in the recent times, like a month or two, or the last 3 or 4 months, you know, more recent.
In the last month, he's been involved in stealing a car. He's been...
No, it was...
If you would hold just a minute, Jimmy, we'll get there.
He's been involved in drinking several times that I know about.
I think you're exaggerating.
And there's probably a lot of times I don't know about what's going on. And his school situation is atrocious.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, he's barely passing. most of his subjects.
What kinds of grades roughly does he get?
Well, he hasn't got anything above a C- in the last couple months that I know of.
So you would consider that a problem?
Absolutely.
The grades?
Absolutely.
Given that the grades, that the problems have been going on for a long time, Mike, what made you decide to come here today, say, as opposed to 2 months ago or 6 months ago?
Well, I'm really not too crazy about being here, to tell you the truth, but the school counselor thought that we ought to be here, and the juvenile court people said if he gets into difficulty again, why it's going to be serious. He'll be put on probation, or he could be institutionalized. So.
So it's more of an escalation of ongoing problems rather than anything major that's brought you here today. Is that correct?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. We'll come back to some of those points, and would like to hear from you, Marie, if we could. Could you tell us a little bit about why you're here?
Well, actually, the school counselor called and said that she was a little concerned with some of the friends that Jim seems to have hung around with lately. But, from what I see, Jim has never been a problem to us, and I think it's just part of growing up, developmental adolescence. I don't see it as a problem. He has always passed from year to year. Sometimes the grades go up and down, but he always manages to pass.
Mhm.
And so I don't really see that. I think it's really being blown out of proportion, and particularly by his dad.
What do you understand, Marie, to be the counselor's concern about Jimmy? Like, what would she say is the matter with Jimmy?
At this point, I guess she's concerned because of the last marking period, and the grades have, dropped. But that's happened before. So,
So she's concerned about the grades
Mhm.
going down
Mhm.
at this time.
Mm-hmm.
Out of all the concerns that Mike mentioned, which one is of the most concern to you? Would you say, for example, the grades or the behavior problems? Which of those would you say is the biggest concern that you have for your son?
I don't really see that there is such a big problem. I guess I would really be concerned that he might think that he's bad or having a problem. I don't see.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I see. So your concern is that
Mm.
Jimmy might think that he's got
Yeah.
a problem psychologically or
Or that,
behaviorally.
that he might think he's not, that he's really so bad or, acting out, one of those tough guys. I don't see that.
Okay.
You see what the problem is, don't you? You're getting some notion of what the problem is, aren't you, doctors?
Well,
You're not home all week, and I'm home with Jimmy. You come home on the weekends, and right away, just because you're tired, everything's a big deal.
I'm expecting things to go smoothly while I'm gone, trying to eke out an existence.
Now, when you argue like this about Jimmy, what does Jimmy do most of the time whenever you go back and forth like this with arguing?
I think sometimes he goes up to his room and, looks at TV or something, or maybe goes out. I'm not really,
Does he usually leave when the two of you argue?
sometimes, or might go in the kitchen and,
Sometimes he does, sometimes he
Yeah,
doesn't.
right.
Uh-huh. What do you say to that, Mike?
I haven't paid that much attention, to tell you the truth. I don't think he hangs around.
So you would agree with Marie that he usually leaves?
I guess he does.
I'd like to come back to some of those things that you've both mentioned and maybe ask you, if I could, Jimmy, what kind of concerns do you have?
I don't have any. There's no problem.
Are you pleased with your grades and
I'm passing.
passing?
You know,
Uh-huh.
I do good when I'm in stuff that I'm interested in, but
So the situation right now, that's not a big deal for you at the moment.
there's no really situation at all.
So you're like grades, you're okay with that?
Yeah, like I said, if I like something, I'll do well, and if I don't, it's not that important, and
Mhm.
I probably won't need it in life. So
What about this big thing, or this thing with the juvenile court and the hullabaloo around that? Do you see that as a problem?
He blew it all out of proportion. It was not a big deal. This a little acquaintance of mine, he borrowed a car. He didn't say he stole it or anything. So, I said, "You want to go for a ride?" So sure, it was, just, driving around, having a good time, just an innocent time.
No big deal, huh?
That's right.
Is it okay, Marie, if we ask your son these questions just directly? Is that all right with you? Okay.
Should we ask something that you think you want to explain to us a little bit more? Feel free to let us know.
Oh, thank you.
And, for you too, Mike, if he says something that you need to explain to us, why, just let us know.
That I can clarify?
Yes,
something?
please. It would be
Okay.
helpful to us.
All right.
You may note the general family pattern. Mother acts to protect the son by explaining his behavior and attempts to blunt father's interventions. She is the placater. It is obvious that there is unresolved tension between father and mother, and yet the outbreak of the conflict is between father and son. In the diagram, you will note father is the more distant part of the triangle. The heated side of the triangle is between father and son, with the closeness between mother and son. At this point, the family discusses their efforts at solutions. The therapist uncovered the major solutions. Father prefers grounding, withholding privileges, withholding the use of the car. Mother tries understanding, caring, encouraging self-esteem. We will return to the family as they examine goals.
If we were to ask each one of you, what would you like to have happen for Jimmy? And then if you could give us maybe some idea as to how you would know if things are beginning to go well.
We're looking here for some small indication that Jimmy might still not be doing as well as you would like, but some small sign that if Jimmy were to do it, that would tell you that things are going better, that he's at least making a step in the right direction in terms of his own improvement.
We would start with you, Mike.
Well,
What would you like to have happen for your son?
I guess if I was just to pick one major thing, it would be to have his grades pick up. If he were to raise his grades up to even B's and C's, why, that would indicate he's probably spending a little more time studying and not as much time with those so-called friends of his. I guess that would be it.
Okay, so one of your goals is like better grades around B and C, right?
At least.
If
yeah.
you found out, either through Marie or through your own observation, that Jimmy was starting to study perhaps 15 minutes at a time here and there, would that be a change?
I think it probably would.
Okay, it wouldn't be enough, but you would consider that a significant step.
That would be a step.
What about for you, Marie? I know you're much more pleased with Jimmy than Mike is these days, but what would be an indication for you that Jimmy's doing even better than he is now?
Well, I'm sure if his grades improved and then his school counselor would agree, and not be concerned, that certainly would say that was going real well. And it has done that in the past,
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So you agree with Mike
Yeah.
in that regard? That may be the only thing you've agreed on here, but you do agree with that.
I agree with that.
Uh-huh.
Mike, Jimmy, did you want to add anything, any last comment on
Go ahead. Speak
on what you would like to see
I just-
happen?
I just like for, him to stay off my back and,
Just to stay off your back.
quit bitching all the time at me and stuff.
And you
Yeah,
think
I
that
don't
if he
need it.
did that, you would be better?
Yeah, it would, I don't know. I'd like to be able to have a regular dad and have a good relationship, but, I can't do it by myself.
Do you think if you made better grades and studied more, he would stay off your back?
Well, that's what he says, but
On the screen, you will see an outline of the territory covered in the initial interview.